Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to zoom in on those foundational textbook concepts of management, but, really give them a real-world pulse. If you've ever found yourself wondering how the gears of your workplace actually turn, or, hey, why certain people get promoted while others seem to do literally all the heavy lifting, well, you're in exactly the right place. We are going to unpack the very DNA of organizations and the people who run them.
We've got a super clear roadmap for our analysis today. We'll be hitting the organizational foundation, defining the manager, the four functions of management, the various roles of a manager, a really interesting look at effective versus successful managers, and finally, understanding organizational behavior. All right, Section 1, the organizational foundation. Let's dive in by starting wide. We really need to establish the macro environment where all this work actually happens. So, an organization isn't just a physical building or some catchy brand name. Fundamentally, it is a consciously coordinated social unit. What does that actually mean? Well, it means it takes two or more people working on a relatively continuous basis to hit a common goal. Think about it. A random crowd of people waiting at a bus stop? Definitely not an organization. But a dedicated team coordinating to launch a new product? Absolutely. It's this living, breathing network of human effort. Moving on to Section 2, defining the manager. Now that we've established that macro environment, let's zoom in on the specific individuals who are actually making those gears turn.
Okay, this is a really brilliant contrast that highlights a fundamental paradigm shift in basically any career. A worker? That's an individual who contributes directly to the accomplishment of specific work goals. They're right there on the front lines doing the tasks. But a manager? A manager is an individual who achieves goals through the efforts of other people. Their success is no longer tied to their own direct output, but rather to their ability to facilitate the output of their team. It's a total game changer.
Which brings us to this punchy, classic quote from management pioneer Mary Parker Follett. She called management the art of getting things done through people. I just love that. It perfectly anchors our understanding of what management truly is at its core. It's not just some rigid science, right? It's a true art form that requires incredible human intuition. Okay, Section 3, 4 functions of management. So how exactly do they practice this art? Let's break down those core daily mechanics.
You can kind of think of these 4 functions as this sequential, continuous loop that every manager operates within. First up, planning. This is where you analyze the strategy and develop plans to coordinate activities. Second is organizing, so figuring out exactly what tasks need to be done, how they're grouped, and who reports to whom. Third, leading. This is where those people skills really kick in to motivate employees and resolve conflicts. And finally, controlling. That's monitoring the activities to ensure things are actually going as planned and correcting any deviations. So it's plan, organize, lead, control, and repeat.
Up next, Section 4, roles of a manager. Now, executing those 4 functions isn't just some linear robotic process. Managers have to be incredibly adaptable, essentially wearing a whole bunch of different hats throughout the day.
So researcher Henry Mintzberg categorized these hats into specific managerial roles. First, we've got the interpersonal roles. This means acting as a figurehead, performing ceremonial or symbolic duties. But then, drastically different from that, it includes being a leader, really fostering a proper work atmosphere to motivate your team, and then smoothly shifting to act as a liaison, maintaining this vital network of external contexts. Building right off those connections, managers next put on the informational hat, basically acting as the nerve center for their team. As a monitor, they are constantly gathering critical internal and external info. Then, as a disseminator, they transmit that info down to their subordinates. And finally, as a spokesperson, they communicate outwards to the rest of the organization or even the outside world. And lastly, we have the decisional roles. Here, a manager has to act as an entrepreneur, constantly scanning for opportunities and initiating change. But what about when things go wrong? Well, then they have to instantly become the disturbance handler, the one putting out sudden fires and managing unexpected crises. Add to that the roles of resource allocator, deciding where the time and money actually go, and negotiator, representing the team in major deals. When you look at Mintzberg's complete overview of these 10 specific roles divided across those 3 primary categories, interpersonal, informational, and decisional, you immediately see why the shift from worker to manager is just so incredibly complex. You aren't just doing one job anymore. You are fluidly shifting between 10 totally different personas just to keep the whole operation functioning. All right, Section 5, effective versus successful managers. Honestly, this brings us to one of the most fascinating parts of our analysis today. It's crazy how the data flips our traditional career expectations completely upside down. But before we actually look at the data, let's quickly categorize 4 key activities that all managers do. First, we have the task and people side. This is traditional management, stuff like planning and controlling, alongside HR work, like motivating and staffing. Now contrast that with the information and politics side. This involves routine communication, like processing paperwork, and networking, which is socializing and interacting with outsiders. Definitely keep these activities in the back of your mind here.
Okay, so based on a famous study by Fred Luthans, let's look at how 2 types of managers allocate their time. Successful managers are defined as those who are promoted the fastest. Effective managers, on the other hand, are defined by the actual quality and quantity of their team's performance. Look at this massive discrepancy in the data. The fast-rising successful managers spend nearly half their time, 48%, on networking and socializing. But the truly effective managers, their time is dominated by routine communication at 44% and HR management at 26%. They only spend 11% of their time networking. It's wild, right? It brilliantly illustrates a pretty hard truth of the corporate world. The behaviors that drive actual team performance are not necessarily the same behaviors that get a manager promoted quickly. Which leads us to our final part, Section 6, Understanding Organizational Behavior. Let's zoom all the way back out to the big picture to look at the overarching science that studies all these complex interactions. Literally everything we've covered today falls under the massive umbrella of organizational behavior, or OB. In textbook terms, OB is a field of study investigating the impact that individuals, groups, and structure have on behavior within organizations. But in simpler terms, it's the ultimate framework we use to understand, predict, and even control human behavior to build better, much healthier workplaces. It doesn't just sit back and observe. It takes all that knowledge and actively applies it toward improving an organization's real-world effectiveness. So as you step back and analyze your own corporate ecosystem, I really want to leave you with this final kind of provocative thought. Look at the managers around you. Based on how they're actually allocating their time, are your leaders focused on being truly effective for their teams, or are they just playing the game to be successful for themselves? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer today. Keep observing, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one.